Making percents and rounding is the last section we're going to talk about for our percent proportion. And if I take a look at the first question, and I'm going to do the first question in each section, write as a percent, round to the nearest whole percent. Well, 7 out of 8. I can do it two different ways. I can type it into my calculator and I can end up getting 0.875, which then I know to make it into a percent, I need to move my decimal point 2 places to the right. So it would be 87.5%. But if I needed to round to the nearest whole percent, I look at my 5, that bumps 7 up to 8. So 88% would be my final answer. Now, if I wanted to do the percent proportion, which remember we have part over whole equals percent over 100. Well, 7 is my part, so I would do 7 over 8 equals x over 100. So then when I multiply across, I get 8x equals 700 divided by 8. And when I do that, I remember type it into my calculator. I get, again, 87.5, and then I'm going to round to the nearest whole percent. So again, I'm going to come back and I will get 88% as my answer. So now if I go down to the next section, we're going to talk about some rounding because for some of our problems or the questions on the assignment today here, you need to make sure that you round to certain place values. So my original number, the first column I have to round to the nearest whole number. Well, I'm going to look at that first number after my decimal point. And if you take a look up here in blue, it says 4 or below, let it go. 5 and above, give it a shove. Or, we've said in class, 5 or more, raise the score. Well, so I know that it's 4 or below, so let it go. We're just going to cross out those numbers, and 14 would be my final answer. For rounding to the nearest tenth, I look at 2 numbers past the decimal because 3 is in the tenths place, and that's the number I need to decide, am I going to round up or leave it alone? And so the 7 is greater than 5, so 14 and 4/10 ends up being my final answer. And then rounding to the nearest hundredth, I again look back here, because 7 is in my hundredths place, that is greater than 5, so 14 and 38 hundredths is my final answer. Then, if I move on to the very last question, or last section, of the last 20 movies shown at the Portage Theater, 8 were action movies, 7 were comedies, 3 were science fiction, 2 were horror. What is the percentage of each movie? So 20, you need to think, is that my part or my whole? And well, if these were the movies shown, that's going to be my whole. 8 were action. I will do the first one for you to help you see how you should set it up, and then the rest of them will be on your own. So about part, if it's action, I'm looking 8 were action. So 8 over 20 equals x over 100. So then 20x equals 800 divided by 20. Because I'm dividing, I can cancel out a 0. 2 goes into 8 4 times, 0 left over. So 40 and then percent is what percentage were action movies. And so if you follow those same steps, you will be able to get each percentage. And to check, when you get all done, this should add up to be 100%. For the second question and the third question here, in parentheses, make sure you notice round to the nearest whole number and then the third question round to the nearest tenth. So making sure that you're paying attention to those details is going to be really important.